It should.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by Melissa Brunetti. Welcome to the show. This
Thank you.
this is just a brilliant day. I'm just having a brilliant day talking to some lovely people and recording some of the conversations. And other ones are just like pre-production chats to get to know each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, fellow adoptee. We're similar ages as well, I think.
Yes, we are. We are.
Were you born 68? No.
Yes.
68.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
67. So just got
I'm a year younger than you for another 2 months.
another. Okay, so what star sign are you?
Aries.
Aries. Yeah. Do you put much? Do you put much stall in the star signs?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it sometimes.
Yeah.
It comes out.
So when we spoke last time, we thought we'd talk about one of the perennial favourites among us adoptees. This coming out of the fog. So yeah, coming out of the fog. How did that land for you? How did you land when you came out of the fog?
When I came out of the fog, well, I mean, I think we all get in the fog at the time of relinquishment. So, we don't know we're in the fog, obviously, at that point, and we just kind of go into survival mode. But as an adult, I was always a compliant child. I did everything I was told when I was supposed to do it. And I just didn't know any better. I didn't know that I could have an opinion, that I could do what I wanted to do. And I did that throughout, my teens. And I had very low self-esteem, very low self-esteem. So, the first guy that comes along that wanted me, because, as an adoptee, you want to be wanted because you weren't wanted by your birth mother. So that was a big deal for me. And I was like, oh, wait, you want to be with me? Okay, well, then I guess I want to be with you too. Like, I didn't, again, consult myself or, do I really like this guy? So, we just, everything progressed and went along, and I got married to this guy, and I was barely 21 when I got married. Had kids 2 years later, had another kid 2 years later. One was a boy, one was a girl, like everything's perfect, right? Um, and I just wasn't happy, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought the picture perfect, what everybody would consider looking, in the window, a picture perfect family and life. But I was so unhappy. And, 20 years down the road, probably, I started to get really ill and sick. And I went to the doctor and I didn't know what was wrong. And they ran 1,000 tests and nothing was coming up. And he finally looked at me and he's like, "What do you want me to do?" The doctor, he was like, "I don't know what else to do to help you." So the only thing he could think of was put me on antidepressants and anxiety medications and that kind of thing, just to numb whatever was going on, basically. And I remember thinking, I feel literally like I'm dying. Physically, I'm dying. And the doctor has no idea. And they're not going to know until I literally die and they do an autopsy on me. Then they'll figure out what really happened. So one day I just felt like I was in a huge ocean in a little raft, and I could barely see the sand far, far away. And I was going deeper out into the sea. And I remember thinking, if I don't start trying to get back to the beach right now, I'm gone. I'm going to be sucked out to sea and I'm not coming back. I'm going to die. And it scared me. And so I started swimming back. And I realized as I was going through the process of swimming back, I was swimming back to myself. That beach was me, my authentic self, who I really was, who I really wanted to be, where I was going to be happy. And I just kept going at that moment. It was do or die, literally do or die in that moment. So that was the coming out. it wasn't the adoption fog. It was my entire life fog where the adoption was kind of wrapped in there as well, which it probably started, like I said, as a baby, the survival mode and doing everything I was supposed to do. And it just went all the way to I was 41 years old.
Wow. Wow. So what some people might describe as like a midlife crisis then, really, with an
Yeah.
adoptee flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, that's what they did label it. My ex, I'm sure, labeled it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was collateral damage, you know, he was collateral damage in my fog, really, because it wasn't his fault that I gave him a false sense of, yeah, I want you to. When I really? I don't know if I ever really did.
Mm.
So he was just collateral damage in my fog.
Yeah. I described my own, and we were similar ages actually when we had this stuff, and I had this. So if I'm in a good mood, right, I describe it as a, like an awakening. And if I'm in a bad mood, it's a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
um, and when we talked last time, it became clear that there was there was more than one factor in play. One, yeah, there was more than one factor in play in this midlife crisis. So the midlife crisis for me had two things in play. It had business and it had adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impossible to separate
Right.
what's what, but it wasn't purely adoption stuff. And it sounds like um, when you shared that, what you shared in different words before we when we spoke last time, that's what struck me. I thought, here is an adoptee who's coming out of the fog wasn't just adoption stuff.
Right.
The midlife crisis, and there was a relief actually within me when you shared that it wasn't
Mm.
just the adoption stuff that that brought you to your knees,
Yeah. No. No.
brought you to the paddle to paddle back to the beach. There was a relief in that because I think the human mind is it's looking for the silver bullet and it's looking for the one cause. It's got a one track mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a one track mind. It's trying to pin all our stuff on one peg.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and life isn't like that, despite the
Mm.
mind wanting to make it like that. So,
Right.
and
Yes.
yeah, and when I say to people, business caused me far more trauma than adoption did, it never really seems to land for them. I don't know,
You
because
just don't
my
get it.
experience is different. I guess my
Yeah.
experience is different, and it's
Yeah.
just like, and whenever I say it, actually, as I say it now, I realize that um, I'm the one making that up. The fact that it doesn't land, because
Yeah.
it landed with you, didn't it? When I
Yeah.
shared my
Mm-hmm.
stuff with you, so it kind of landed with
Yep.
you. So I
Yeah.
may, yeah, my mind may be just making this up. And as soon as I open my mouth to say business, I know what I'm going to say next. Business caused me more trauma than, as in more
Yeah.
sleepless nights
Right.
than adoption. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there was a relief when you reflected back to me that it isn't just adoption that
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's the other thing is everybody judges everybody on how much fog they're in. Have you noticed that in the adoptee community? It's like
judging the fuck, yeah.
if you say that adoption really didn't, it doesn't, you know, you don't have a wound from it. Oh man, you're in the fog. You haven't even realized that you're in the fog yet. You know, and I see this judging of other adoptees, and it's like, you know, stay in your own boat. Like you need to look at your own fog. And what happens when you try and step into somebody else's boat? You're gonna fall in the water. You're gonna you're gonna drown. Just stay in your boat, mind your own karma, and like look at your own self. But I do see a lot of gaslighting and judging in the adoptee community over everyone else's fog. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that?
I have noticed it, not to the extent that you've noticed it, clearly. And there was a clue. I have to mention it now because you said mind your own karma. So Melissa's got a fantastic podcast, and it's called Mind Your Own Karma. So check it out. Right, check it out. In the show notes. Normally, I put that in the end. I say that at the end, but you've given me a lead in
A
there.
segue.
So yeah, fog judging. Yeah, that's an interesting one. What I have noticed, and I'm feeling quite proud of myself because I don't think I judge on it. I don't judge people on it. This is a big moment for me. I'm not very good at self-complimenting myself. What I have definitely noticed, and I have mentioned a few times recently, is that my primal wound, if there was such a thing, and it, you know, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different argument. Maybe we'll get into that in a minute. Mine was a paper cut, and I see people who have had shark bites. So it's like it's like the Roy Scheiderfield Jaws, and you know, they take a bite out of somebody's leg. You know, you take a
Yeah.
bite out of somebody's thigh, and it's like 2 foot across, something like that,
Yeah.
foot across, like a
Yeah.
shark bite. Mine feels like a paper cut. So I notice, I've noticed differences in the severity of the primal wound, not differences in the amount of
The fog.
the fog.
I want to ask you a question. Now, this is off
Go for
fog
it.
subject, but why do you think that is? Why do you think the wound is different? What's the difference?
So that's a really good question.
Because I've been racking my brain on that one. I'm like, why is it? Is
If,
it authenticity that more that some people know themselves better, so it doesn't affect them as much? I don't know. I don't know.
I think different differences, different outer experience, you know,
Yeah.
different inner experience. So the trauma, I usually look at this question from a layering of trauma. So I'm not just talking about the primal wound. So I'll talk about, okay, the primal wound, and then some trauma, lack of attachment in foster, in a
Mm-hmm.
foster care pre-adoption, then some abuse in the adoptive family, and then some bullying in school, and then some, you know, like transracial complexities. No, I feel different, and I also look different,
Yeah.
and an alienation that comes off from then, and then added on to that is the fact that people treat me differently. So
Mm-hmm.
normally, when I think of this thing, I look at the layering of the compounding of the trauma.
Mm.
So I can answer that one quite well. But in terms of we're only looking at one layer of the trauma, and your question is, I guess, why is that layer thinner or thicker if if trauma is the cake, and
Right.
my language, why is the primal wound, paper cut at one end, shark bite? I guess paper. You could have paper cut, you could have shark bite, and you could have beheading. If you wanted
Yeah.
to get, you could have. I mean, have you seen that the Scottish film with the Australian hero Mel Gibson,
Yeah.
Braveheart?
Yeah.
They hang, draw, and quarter him, right? So at the primal wound is a spectrum.
Hmm.
I would say it depends on the inner constitution of the individual and the outer experience. And I'd say it's also about the amount of trauma that was going on for the birth mother and the amount of um, generational trauma that 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 birth mother might have suffered. So
Mm.
if uh, by generational trauma, I could relate it to maybe if they're Jewish, and you look at all the trauma that's being passed down about how the
Right.
persecution of the Jews, and then if they were black in the UK or black in the US, then you've got kind of the 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 slavery persecution rather than the
Hmm.
Auschwitz
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
So
I
again, we
would,
can't hang it on one hook like you were talking about.
I'd say, yeah, it would be that's how I would answer it.
Yeah. It's complex.
Yeah, and
You can't just take
like,
that one layer of the cake. You
there
got to
isn't that
take the
one
whole
layer,
cake.
and I think there's different there's some on a mass gender simplification things going on. So I've heard that women question more.
Mm.
Okay, so I could put that down to like, so you've got, and then this is you as women as a massive stereotype, right? So
Yeah. Right.
I'm just trying to answer the question. So you've got a we want to sow our seeds and scatter.
Hmm.
We've got one track minds, and it's the survival of the species and sex that way, right?
Hmm.
As in blokes, and then you've got a maternal instinct. Some of, again, that is going to differ from woman to woman. So you've got this maternal instinct. You can understand that, and the maternal instinct is one thing, and there's a clash between a maternal instinct and uh, a maternal relinquishment.
Right.
There's a direct fight between
Hmm.
those two on a subconscious level,
Primal level.
a
Yes.
primal level, and that's why um, it's inconceivable. It's less conceivable for women, massive generalization, than it is for us blokes.
Yeah. I had trouble connecting like I see other women connect with their babies. When I had my babies, I didn't have I had obviously I loved them and everything, but I think they sensed something at a primal level in me from my adoption because I couldn't soothe them like my husband at the time could, which is kind of weird. And until they were probably, I don't know, 3 months around there. But when they were newborns, it was really hard for me. And I hear these women say, "Oh, my, kids are growing up and I just wanted a little baby again." And I'm like, "What? Why?" I always wanted them to get older so I could have like a conversation with them, like for some reason that little and even other people's babies. I'm like, I don't need to hold the baby. Like I'm okay. You know, I just have this, I don't have that. And it feels so weird because like I say, I see these other mothers that are just like, oh, babies, you know, newborns, and they get all crazy. And I'm just like, cute, cute kid.
Yeah.
I don't have that. That's broken in me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm only talking massive generalizations
Yeah.
here, you know, and I don't know whether they kind of make sense to me.
Yeah.
They kind of make sense to me on the back of the conversations that I had and the generalizations people telling me, and think about reading that book. Did you read that book? It was a huge one. Men are from Mars, women are from
No.
Venus. Do you remember that? I bought that book, and I think I read the first chapter. I thought, no, this is just
If I had bought it, I probably read the first chapter too because I don't remember it.
yeah, just been it. Yeah.
I remember the book, but I don't remember reading it, so I probably didn't either.
So I'm going to go back. I loved your analogy of um, uh, rowing back to the beach. So, what did you find when you got to the beach?
You know, such a journey because I didn't even know what my favorite color was at that point. And it was really um, kind of a childlike exploration of what did I like, what food did I like to eat, what do I like to do, you know, what hobbies would I like to what would I want to learn, you know. So I it was an exploration of how I felt when I did this or when I did that. And I really had to go and step out of my comfort zone. You know, when like the baby elephant that's tied up and so it's only got this little circle to go, you know, around in. That's what I was. And then the chain was cut, but I still wanted to stay in that little circle because that's what I knew was my comfort zone. And I had to step out or I was, like I said, I was going to die. So that's very scary. And, but that's the only way that you are going to come out of the fog is to step out and move. If you stay there, you're going to still be in the fog. You have to see what's past the fog. You have to go through the fog, and your compass is you. Nobody's going to come save you. I was waiting for somebody to come save me. I was waiting for the doctor to save me. I was waiting for my husband at the time to change to save me. And I could have sat there. I could have sat there forever and been miserable. I didn't want that. I
Yeah.
didn't want that anymore. I had to move. I had to move out of that circle and step out and see what was past my reality for the first 41 years of my life.
Wow. Um, a yeah. Your fellow the lady that introduced me to to you. It's just completely gone out of my head. I hate that.
Danielle?
Amanda, yeah,
Oh, Amanda. Okay.
yeah, yeah. You, Amanda,
From Fireside. Yeah.
yeah, Amanda from Fireside, um, Fireside Adoptees is just great. So check that out, listeners, if you haven't heard of them. Melissa and Amanda and a whole team of other fantastic people working on Fireside Adoptees. Check them out on Facebook. Amanda sent me a link to a YouTube video this morning, and it's probably why the generational trauma and the Jewish thing is on the top of my mind, because I was listening. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast of the video, right? So it's an interview with a British guy and Edith Egger, who's a Holocaust survivor, and she talks about the so her book is called The Choice. And in Auschwitz, she had this realization that she was freer than the guards.
Mm.
And she had this realization that the prison, the prison is our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Prison is in our mind after the trauma.
Yeah.
Prison is in our mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The prison is in our mind. And where my mind went from that is the prison is our mind.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about thinking outside the box, but what if thinking is the box? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All this learned, conditioned thoughts about ourselves. And when you talked about the elephant on the elephant chain as being cut, and you still saying inside that comfort zone, the elephant moving as far as he or she could when the chain was on.
Yeah.
That's where my brain went to, that the prison is our mind is the prison.
Yeah. And we can allow ourselves, we can give ourselves permission to step out. That's the hard part, though, is that first step out of the circle.
Yes, we can do that. And we do that by, we can do that, or we can see another way to look at that. What sets us free is to realize that we aren't our mind. We are infinite.
Mm-hmm.
We are we're not that finite being. We're one infinite being. We are infinity. I don't know. So I came up with something for this a few months ago. And this was three steps that sum up my experience. So it is the agony of insufficiency. The agony of insufficiency. I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough. I'm not loved enough. I'm not enough. The agony of insufficiency. The relief of being enough. So it's like I had this. We're back. I'm back to a Jewish vibe again. This is back on like the Jewish mamas say, enough already, enough already. Like you are enough. I remember being in a seminar like 2.5 years ago, and I was just like, somebody said, enough, enough, and I just went, I'm enough. The relief, it's an exhale. Yeah. It's an exhale. Yeah. I'm enough. I'm enough. Yeah. So we go from the agony of insufficiency to the relief of sufficiency, the relief of being enough, seeing deep in our soul, not a nice idea, but not a theory, an experience, not practice. Yeah, not theory, but practice, not an idea, but an experience. Like something deep, like just in the moment, that feeling of enough.
Mhm.
And then the next bit is the really brilliant bit. That's the bliss of infinity.
Mm, yep. That's where we all need to go. Well, insufficiency, if you think about it, is the external. You're either comparing or worrying about what somebody's saying about you. That's outside of you. Insufficiency is outside of you. And what you're talking about is the core, the
Yeah.
self, the infinity part of you.
Yeah. Comparisonitis, I've heard it called.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing a bit of that with other adoption podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so my good friend Vin has been on the show a few times, and I've got another episode coming up with him soon, actually. And it's on this subject, it's a fascinating question came to me. So, how does and the question was something like, how does the anguish of relinquishment become a, a, a thought that we're not good enough? And we
Mm.
do like an hour on that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it seemed that when I came up with that, I just thought that is completely nuts, isn't it? That a feeling becomes a thought, like
Yep. Sure
feeling
does.
of loss becomes a thought of not good enough. And like, what if we could, like, you know, cut the cord on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What if we
If
could
it was that easy.
yeah, but it's like it's a belief, though, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like a belief. So we bring it out of the darkness. So my metaphor usually for beliefs is like an ice cube, right? So we bring it out of the darkness, and we put a heat gun on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it melts quickly. Or
Yeah.
we take the ice cube out of eventually the ice cube, take it out of the freezer. It's gonna melt. But let's speed this along, right? So let's put some laser focus of light and attention on this belief,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like a heat gun on the ice cube, and it's gonna melt to water, and it's gonna become a puddle. Keep the heat gun on it again, and it just evaporates into nothing, because
Yeah.
it's a belief, right? What's it
Right.
made of? Thoughts.
Well, it's like locking yourself in prison and you've got the key in your hand because it's your thoughts. You can change them. So
Yeah.
you can set yourself free, but a lot of it's not that easy just to change your thought and you feel different the next moment. It's got to be a practice that you keep practicing.
So what comes after the fog?
After the fog, after the fog is I'm you know when I figured out who I was at that point on that journey, I was trying to find my tribe, and people fell away. People that had been in my life for practically my whole life, I found out through finding myself that they didn't like that. They didn't like who I was becoming. And I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with them walking away and not having any bad feelings about it, no resentment about it, no anger about it. They're doing what they need to do to be authentic. I'm doing what I need to do to be authentic. We were on a road together for a while, and now there's a fork in the road, and I'm going right and you're going left, and that's okay. I had to be okay with it. So coming out of the fog and finding my authenticity was finding the people that I found out who supported me. I found out who I left in the dust, along my fog. And those people were still there waiting for me on the other side of the fog, they were still there. And so that was emotional
Yeah.
for me.
Wow.
And it's just the greatest feeling. I can't even explain it. It's the greatest feeling to know that I'm okay being me and I'm okay with you being you, and whatever that looks like, it's okay. And I don't have to take on, how come you don't like me? I don't have to take any of that on. It's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. And if I think I'm a great person, if you don't want me in your life, then you're missing out. That's how I feel. It's okay.
Yeah. Love
It's
it.
fine.
Love it. So you painted such when I asked you what did you find when you got to the beach, I thought you were going to say, well, I found a parasol, a couple of deck chairs, a bucket,
A drink with an
table,
umbrella.
sorry, an umbrella, yeah. So
A
yeah,
drink with an
parasol,
umbrella.
a British word for umbrella, right? Yeah.
Pretty
So
much.
yeah, you're going to think, and you found a little table as well between the deck chairs, and on the table was a champagne bucket, and in the champagne bucket was a load of ice, and a bottle of, I don't know, Dom
Dom
Perry,
Perignon.
yeah, vintage.
Right.
You pop the cork,
Pretty
and
much.
yeah, and you
That's pretty much
celebrated
what was there. Yeah.
the thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so to put your metaphor together, then to put the fog metaphor and your the boat metaphor. So the fog was more like a sea mist,
Mm-hmm.
right? A sea harp, we call them. Do you have that word? You use that word, harp? Harp.
Mm-mm.
That's a funny word.
No.
Ha ha, but ha ha means a fret or a fret. It's like a fog that's over the sea.
Okay.
It doesn't. I don't know why I'm explaining all these. Anyway, so you so as you rowed back to the beach, the fog lifted, and you saw yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said the beach was yourself, actually, wasn't
That
it?
was
That's what you
myself.
said, yeah.
I could barely see it. It was this little teeny strip of
Yeah,
sand way off in the distance. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get back if I don't start right now.
yeah.
Right now.
So my take on that metaphor would be, we come out of the fog into the sunshine, but we haven't yet seen ourselves, despite the fact that the fog has lifted. And rather than a beach, I'd say we see the lighthouse,
Mm-hmm.
and the lighthouse was working, and it was the lighthouse that drew us out of the fog.
Yeah.
So it was ourselves bringing ourselves
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
back home.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Well, we get so focused on the fog and that we can't see and we don't know what to do and how to get out and, all the things, that we don't stop and look at our navigation system, which is inside of us to get
Yeah,
us back home.
yeah. I love the way, because you use the word compass, didn't you? So like a compass is just another metaphor. Compass and navigation system are,
Mm-hmm.
compass is a navigation system. So obviously these days we'd be on sat nav, wouldn't we? But yeah, and it's within inside us, and so we're bringing ourselves back home.
Yeah. We
And
so
then,
focus on the trauma and the fog and the all
yeah,
those things that we don't look to, and we have it. Like I said, you're the prisoner with the key in your hand. You have the combination to get out of the fog if you just stop. Just
yeah.
stop for just a second and stop focusing on all that stuff.
So we see that we are the beach, using your analogy, my slightly different analogy. We see that we are the lighthouse. And then what happens is a cloud comes in and we think,
And the
oh
dramatic music
no,
comes.
oh
Dun,
no,
dun, dun.
dun, dun, dun. The body has kept the score, and my score, and my body's coming back to terrify me. It's like a Scooby Doo. It's like it's
Right. I use that
yeah,
analogy too, the Scooby Doo analogy.
yeah, and because we thought that once we'd seen, yeah, hallelujah, I've seen the light, I've seen the lighthouse, I've seen the beach. We thought it was once and done, but
Yeah.
oh, no, it's
Yeah.
not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No. But still, that's where the magic happens. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing, you know? You have to become comfortable. I hated change. I hated it till probably a couple of years ago. And now I'm like, well, every time I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. Something's happening. I'm learning something right now, you know? It's
yeah,
exciting. You have to change your mindset. You just have to.
yeah. You have to change your mindset. That's an interesting one. It depends what you mean by you. Yeah, I, I think our mindsets change. I don't think we change them. I think I talk about this as hanging out at the bus stop for insights. I think
Mm,
insights changes, and I think all we can do is go to the bus stop, but we can't determine when the bus is going to arrive, and two might come at the same time. You know, we don't. The analogy runs out, right? Because there's no timetable on this bus stop.
yeah, but I could call an Uber.
Call an Uber. Oh,
I'll figure
yes,
out a way.
yes. Uh, And so if people are still wondering how, I haven't said this for a while on the podcast. So yeah, how do I do that then, Simon? Well, listener, you are doing it already. You are listening to other adoptees' insights. And our hope with the Thriving Adoptees show is that you will, the guests' insights, my insights, our insights will catalyze, provoke, stimulate, that's a good word, isn't it, rather than provoke.
Yeah.
Our insights will stimulate insights within you, because when I looked at different um, yeah when I looked at different adoption podcasts, I figured that the emphasis on Thriving Adoptees podcast is insights. It's
Mm,
insights that move us forward. um,
yeah.
yeah and what kept me stuck was the story in my head. So if you'd asked me to tell my story, I would have been reinforcing my stuckness, because I would be
Mm-hmm.
putting, yeah, I would have been reinforcing the concrete with steel,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the story in my head kept me stuck. I see a lot. I'm slightly concerned about this. You know, that person, we got to share our story. So yeah, but are we sharing? Are we sharing the truth of who we are? Are we still? Are we? Are we? Are we? Are we sharing a work of fiction?
Why do you think that?
Because I would have done it.
Mm,
Because if somebody had asked me, I challenging challenging the voice in my head.
Yeah.
It's kind of, before I got into all this more kind of esoteric lighthouse spirit kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it was more about, probably at the same. It was, for me, it was always about separating the story in my head from the truth of I am who
Right.
we are. That's when my midlife crisis, or my personal learning journey, spiritual journey, whatever you call it, it started with that, with 5 days on separating Simon from Simon's story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
seeing that it was fiction. I took talking to Americans about this, I say, I adjust the metaphor. So I say, well, I thought I was watching CNN when really I was watching the Comedy Channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Until you come to that realization, you can't make, and that's kind of the frustrating part is, and that's why I think telling stories on podcasts and getting the word out that way is so important, because I think it gives other people permission to step out of the circle. And I survived, you survived, you'll survive, and
Don't go do Gloria Gaynor on me.
I might.
Yeah, go.
But yeah, telling the stories.
I read a poem. I read a poem on a podcast yesterday when I was guesting. Yeah, I wrote 2 poems last.
Oh, yeah, the one you posted one, right?
Yeah.
Did you post both of them or just one?
I posted one on Friday and one on Saturday.
I think I only saw one. I'll have to go back. Yeah, they were
Sorry, I
good.
interrupted you. I
No,
interrupted you.
yeah, you're fine.
I think the story is a before and after, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. As long as there's an after.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's just before.
Yeah. And you might not relate to somebody and you'll relate to the next person, or you'll relate to part of the story. But I always in my podcast and say, take what you need and leave what you don't. Like if you didn't like
Brilliant.
something I said, that's okay. I'm just giving my opinion or somebody's opinion. You don't have to take it. It's fine if that doesn't fit you.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So is there I've name checked the podcast. I've name checked Farside Adoptees. We'll put links to all that stuff and to your socials in the show notes. So I encourage you listeners to check out what Melissa's doing. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think we covered it. Pretty good.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, listeners. We will speak to you again very soon. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.